Hello everybody, my name's Nerdy Lover and welcome to another episode of our football betting show here on YouTube. This is a midweek European edition. We've done okay in the Champions League so far, so please check out our other videos for our recent track record and results there. But as we can see from this other column, which does include a couple games from the Carabao Cup, in August, we hit a 50% win rate and did lose £9, unfortunately, but we turned things around in the couple of games in September, hitting at 87.5%, £66 profits. So in total, we're almost 3 units up of £57.20. We've got a nice bunch of selections here across the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League as well. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the action with our Champions League selections. Starting things off for us this week, we do have Ajax versus Napoli in Amsterdam, and despite winning in dominant fashion against Rangers on match day 1, Ajax did end up losing to Liverpool in their last outing in the Champions League. This was a game in which they were dominated and managed to score against the run of play. Some neutrals may say that Liverpool were perhaps fortunate to get their late winner courtesy of Joel Matip, but I would say this is about the right result as Ajax were statistically dominated. Another recent result which did not go Ajax's way just before the international break was their game against AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie. Despite taking the lead and controlling much of the play in this fixture, they did concede 2 goals in the space of 5 minutes at the end of the first half and could not break down an organised AZ side. This does mean that Ajax were denied the opportunity to go top of the table in Holland, and AZ are keeping things tight early on. When we look at the visiting side, Napoli come to Amsterdam top of the Serie A and unbeaten at the time of recording. Napoli are also unbeaten through their 2 games in the Champions League with impressive wins against Liverpool and Rangers. Napoli are also riding a 5-game consecutive winning streak, unbeaten in their last 20 competitive matches. In the Champions League, Ajax averaging 2.5 goals per game, creating 2 chances per 90 and conceding 1 goal per game. However, Napoli do outclass them in each of these categories, scoring 3.5 goals per game, averaging a truly outstanding 7 key chances per 90, and only conceding half a goal. Obviously, this is somewhat spectacular due to their limited sample size of 2 matches, but considering both Ajax and Napoli have played exactly the same opposition at this point in the campaign, there is something to read into it there. I like Napoli to get at least a draw away from home here. I think there's some pretty good value in laying Ajax here, so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be laying Ajax or Napoli double chance in our first bet. From Holland to Portugal now as Porto host by Leverkusen. And Porto come into this game 3rd place in the Portuguese league, dropping points against Rio Ave and Estoril early on. This does mean that the Draguls find themselves 5 points off front runners Benfica, and Conceição's men will feel the pressure here in the Champions League, sitting bottom after 2 games following a hammering defeat against Club Brugge by 4-0. Leverkusen are also doing worse than what the neutrals had hoped for. They currently sit at 15th place in the Bundesliga at time of recording. They do face Bayern Munich this weekend. In fact, if Leverkusen lose to Bayern Munich, which is not inconceivable, and the teams around Leverkusen win, the Germans could arrive in Portugal 17th in the Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen, though, are starting to turn things around with their win against Atletico Madrid last time in the Champions League, and they are unbeaten in their last 3 games prior to the international break. Leverkusen are creating chances as well, though, averaging 2.7 key chances created per 90. And when these chances do come off, they can get upset results like a 2-0 win against Atletico. When they don't go well and the strikers aren't finding the back of the nets, they will suffer, especially as they do not keep clean sheets. They only have 1 in their last 7 games. Once again, they're facing Bayern Munich at the weekend, which will probably be 1 clean sheet from 8 games. My real confidence for this one comes from the head-to-head record. Most of the time in European contests, the head-to-head record is a little bit irrelevant, as there's a lot of history and there's great swathes of time between matches, which can sort of lead to a false narrative being created. Anyway, Porto and Bayer Leverkusen played each other as recently as 2020 in the Europa League knockout stages, with Leverkusen winning both games by a margin of 5-2. Over the 2 games, Leverkusen secured the ball at about a 60% possession rate, outshooting Porto by 27-13. When we look at shots on target, they outpaced Porto again by a margin of 13-7, outcreating them as well with a margin of 7-3. When we look at the players that are involved in those two games, Bayer Leverkusen still feature 7 of the 11 players which started, with notable exceptions being the Bender brothers, Lucas Alario and Kai Havertz. Porto, however, only have 3 of the 11 remaining, losing key players from that lineup such as Jesus Cardona, Alex Tejas, Musa Merenga and obviously most notable of all, Luis Diaz. The story that I'm trying to tell myself here is we're looking at a talented and more consistent squad in Leverkusen that have just started to turn their season around compared to a Porto team that are at the bottom of their rebuilding cycle, losing many of their top players and frankly not replacing them. I think it would be a bit foolish to back Leverkusen away from home, especially considering how they've started, but they might get a point here at least. I'm going to be laying Porto at home in our second selection of today's episode. Our third and final selection in the Champions League for this episode sees Red Bull Salzburg versus Dinamo Zagreb. And Red Bull come into this game sitting atop of the Bundesliga in Austria. 9 games played so far, outscoring their opposition by 22-4. They only have a single loss to their name. Red Bull Salzburg have also started off the Champions League fairly well, drawing against the 2 bigger teams in the group in Chelsea and AC Milan. Despite giving up a lot of possession, Red Bull Salzburg were clinical and managed to convert their chances on the counter. Against Dinamo Zagreb, I would expect Red Bull to play a more possession-based, dominant brand of football, which they're used to doing domestically. Looking at the domestic statistics, Red Bull have 61% of possession and average about 4 goal-scoring chances created every 90 minutes. Looking at the visitors, Zagreb here, they've started well in the Croatian League, unbeaten through 10 games and have opened up an impressive 11-point lead on the second-place Hajduk Split and the rest of the chasing pack. Now, a surprise win against Chelsea got Dinamo off to a good start in the Champions League, but things are starting to return to the status quo with their 3-1 defeat to AC Milan. With no recent head-to-head to go off, I would cautiously take Red Bull Salzburg to win here. Having said that, I do believe we've presented a good enough case to look at a full stake here. So with a bit of caution, I will be going £20 full stake on Red Bull Salzburg to win at home. From the Champions League to the Europa League now as Fenerbahce host AEK. Fenerbahce are off to a solid start in Turkey with 6 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat. They also stand as the division's top goal scorers with 20 goals. Fenerbahce have also started well in the Europa League, winning against Dinamo Kiev, drawing against Stade Rennais on match day 2. AEK are the visitors and currently sit in 9th place in the Cypriot League through 4 games. It's early doors, but they have been outscored by 3-4. Essentially, what we're looking at here is 2 teams in different stages of their season. Fenerbahce are well underway, showing good form, compared to a side which have got off to a sluggish start in both campaigns domestically and on the continent. I like Fenerbahce to win this one here. They're a bit short, so we're going to be starting a double. They're going to be our first leg here. And this is going to be our only selection of the Europa League, as the bookies have done really well at pricing things this week. So in order to find some more value and add another team to this accumulator, we're going to have to jump over to the Europa Conference League. And I have a couple selections there. Adding to our accumulator here, we have RFS of Latvia hosting Başakşehir of Turkey. RFS are second in the Liga, and their domestic division is well underway, so they're not going to suffer from match fitness in this one here today. RFS in the Conference League are winless. They did get an impressive draw against Fiorentina in Italy before losing 2-0 on home soil. They host Başakşehir today, who are a side in impervious form, sitting 3rd place in the Turkish Superliga through 6 games with 4 wins and 2 draws. They're also unbeaten in the Conference League with 2 wins from 2, outscoring opposition by 7-0. The Turks in Europe are creating an average of 3 clear goal-scoring chances per 90 and holding around 60% of the ball. I would fear for the Latvians here today, as they have only scored 1 goal in Europe. Başakşehir are the team for me, and they're going to be added into the second leg of our double, which has now become, well, a Turkish affair. 1 game to go here, and it's Slovakia versus Nice. Slovakia sit 12th place in the Czech League through 9 games, with no wins in their last 5 domestic matches. They're on a similar run of form in Europe as well. They are bottom of the group through 2 games, with just 1 point to their name. The French side Nice are the visitors today, and they have got off to a similarly poor start in France. Currently sitting 13th in Ligue 1 and facing PSG at the weekend, they may slip further down the side. What can we say about Nice? Well, they are unbeaten in Europe with 2 draws against Partizan and Cologne. There's no statistical promise for either of these two sides, so this selection is more of a punt, more of a genuine gamble, I feel. I just think that a side featuring the likes of Kasper Schmeichel, Yusuf Attal, Aaron Ramsey, Ross Barkley, Nicolas Pepe, and Anthony Delort will have enough talent to win against a relatively unknown side from Czechia. Nice in a single, for me, will wrap up today's selections. Over to the spreadsheet for a quick recap. Jeez Louise, I feel like I've been talking for hours. There's so much data to go through with all these teams, but we do have 5 selections for today's episode in the midweek, ranging from the 4th to the 6th of October. Starting off with Ajax versus Napoli, we're going to be laying Ajax at odds of 0.76 or 3/4, £20 stake to return 15.38. Next up, we have Porto via Leverkusen. We do not think Porto will pick up the win. Odds of about 7/10, £20 stake to return 14.29. Next up, we have Rebel Salzburg to beat Dinamo Zagreb in the Champions League. Odds of 7/10, £20 stake to return 14. Turkish double is next up. We've got Fenerbahce and Başakşehir at odds of about 6/5, £20 stake to return £24. And finally, in the Conference League, we've got Slovakia versus Nice. We think that Nice have the stronger squad, will have the quality to pick up a win on the road here. Odds of 0.96, a £20 stake to return 19.20. Across the 5 bets, we're going to be risking £100 to hopefully pick up £86.87. If you've made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below. My name's been Nerdy Lover, and as always, have yourself a lovely day.